Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series. Well, this is the final week to make it into the Kentucky Derby. The point standings will be finalized after Saturday, April 10th, and we've got two last prep races for horses to try to get into the race. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Grade 3 Lexington. This one's just offering 20 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner, a lot less than the 100 points that are on the line to the winner of the Arkansas Derby, which is also on Saturday. I'll talk about that race in another video, but the focus of this race is the 9th at Keeneland on Saturday, their 11 race card. It is that Grade 3 Lexington going a mile and a 16th, that short stretch run at Keeneland. Let's throw up the field for this race, and we've got a heavy favorite on the morning line in the number 7 Proxy. And Proxy really is the only horse in this race that's likely to make it into the Kentucky Derby from this Lexington if they elect to go that route. The number 6 Hockey Dad also has some Kentucky Derby qualifying points from the Jeff Ruby Stakes, but he'd be a bit more of a long shot to make it into the field. I think he would need some defections even if he won this Lexington Stakes. So Proxy's the one that might be able to catapult into the Derby with a victory here. We'll see what they decide to do. And based on recent form and his class lines, he is the horse to beat in this race. But it's a pretty intriguing field, one where you can make a case for many horses, some coming out of allowance and maiden victories that are pretty interesting, that will get tested for class, and some of them as well for distance in this race. So a lot to sort out, and a lot to sort out also on the front end in this race. As we move on to the TimeformUS pace projector, there is a ton of speed signed on in here, and really a lot of speed drawn right down towards the inside in those first 4 post positions. And you see the 2 horses that are drawn closest to the rail are projected to be in front in this race, those being the number 1 Noble Reflection and the number 2 Swift Shore. Both of those horses have never been farther than 6 furlongs in their careers, and they have shown speed in those sprint races, so they are likely to show speed in this route race as well, especially breaking down to the inside. But just to their outside, you've got the number 3 Bozos, who's coming off a gate-to-wire victory, the number 4 It's My House, who's also a speedster, and outside of them, you've got some stalkers who could press the pace, like the number 6 Hockey Dad, the number 9 King Fury, who showed some tactical speed in races as a 2-year-old, and then you've got that number 7 Proxy, who's right in mid-pack, and he's a horse that does have that running style where he can kind of be placed in a stalking position or back in mid-pack, so he should get the right trip in this race. We'll just have to see if others take a step forward and if Proxy can show up with his best effort. Let's move right into the past performances of that morning line favorite, the number 7 Proxy. This is yet another possible Kentucky Derby entrant for Godolphin. They've got the likely favorite for that race in Essential Quality, who is another son of Tappet. Proxy has run well, really, in all of his career starts. He was a little disappointing last time out in the Louisiana Derby, but that's only because he had developed this history of taking a step forward with each successive start leading up to that Louisiana Derby. And I think the general assumption was that he was just going to keep moving forward into that race, especially stretching out to the mile and 3/16 distance. That didn't actually happen, as he was maybe a little uncomfortable heading into the first turn of that race, was bounced around a bit in traffic, but he really had a shot coming into the stretch, that long stretch of the fairgrounds, and just couldn't really make any headway, couldn't get any closer to the winner of that race, Hot Rod Charlie. Actually, Midnight Bourbon, who beat him there, was turning the tables on him because Proxy had beaten him in their prior meeting in the Risen Star. So Proxy really just has to show in this Lexington that the Louisiana Derby is not a sign that he's heading in the wrong direction. I'm not too down on him based on that performance, just purely from a speed figure standpoint. He's been pretty consistent throughout all of these preps at the fairgrounds in the winter, running 111, 112, 113, just not last time taking the step forward that I think some of them expected him to take. But cutting back to the mile and the 16th distance in this Lexington, that should be just fine for him, given how well he ran in the Lecomte going this distance back in January. So I think Proxy makes a lot of sense in this race. It's really just a question of how short a price you want to take on a horse who is so obvious as the horse to beat in this spot. Looking at the other horse that might be in the hunt for some Kentucky Derby qualifying points in here, and that's the number 6 Hockey Dad. He's coming off a pretty nice effort last time out over the Tapeta surface at Turfway in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He only finished 3rd that day, but he ran a very nice race within the context of the flow of that race, because he was wide coming into the clubhouse turn after breaking from that outside post number 11 in an 11-horse field. Again, was losing ground coming around the far turn, was forced to make an early move after the lead when they came to the quarter pole. And he definitely got tired at the end, but he kept battling away all the way to the finish line and was out finishing some others who didn't seem to get the distance. So I thought he ran well, all things considered, to just lose by a length with a 1:15 TimeformUS speed figure, which for him is clearly the best best number that he's run in his career. I think the questions for Hockey Dad are how much did the synthetic surface move him up last time, because he's a horse that's handled all three surfaces, dirt, synthetic, and turf, and I think there's still a question mark as to which surface is his preferred one. On the dirt, he's never gone farther than 6.5 furlongs, so while he handled the distance on the synthetic course last time, I think he does still have some questions to answer about what he really wants to do, and I think this is a tougher field than he's faced in the Jeff Ruby Stakes last time, so I just wonder about his overall quality, and I think some other horses have a more appealing profile in this race, but I'm not going to be shocked if he runs well. He's definitely one that I would use underneath. Some other horses that are coming out of different spots, like maiden and allowance races, figure to attract some support in this race. One of those could be the number 3 Bozos, who's shipping in for Bob Baffert. Bob Baffert has a few 3-year-olds in action this weekend, including a couple in Arkansas and that Arkansas Derby. But his one starter in this Lexington is Bozos, and this is one who had garnered a lot of hype and attention prior to his career debut back in February. He was bet down to 3-5 odds as a first-time starter in that race based on a highly reviewed series of workouts. Personally, having watched those workouts myself and kind of analyzed the way that I think he's been working in company, I never really got where the hype was coming from with this horse. He just looks like an above average workhorse to me, so I wasn't that shocked when he did not run well first time out. He did take a step forward in his second start when he was again bet down to favoritism, though not the same kind of prohibitive favoritism that it's in his debut. And he handled the mile that day and won off by over 4 lengths, but he was beating a relatively subpar maiden field at Santa Anita. The 105 TimeformUS speed figure is really nothing spectacular at this time of the year. So I think Bozos is going to have a tough time as he steps way up in class in this Lexington. And it's also tough to see him working out a winning trip in a field that just features so much other early speed, including some horses to his inside that might be faster than him in the early going. So I'm a little against Bozos in this Lexington. I'm a little more encouraged by those 2 speed horses that are drawn to the inside of Bozos. One of those is the number 2 Swift Shore, who is stretching out for the first time for Steve Asmussen, and I've liked both of this horse's past 2 races. Let's take a look at his victory last time in the that allowance race at Oaklawn Park, where he won 6 furlongs, and he was a pretty gritty winner of this race. He stalked the pace in the early going, had some horses come to him on the outside and upper stretch, but he kicked away pretty nicely at the end of this race, and the horses that finished behind him have actually come back to do some nice things. The second place finisher came back to win, a couple others that were off the board also came back to win, and the third place finisher, Bob's Edge, came back to win 2 starts later with a vastly improved speed figure. So Swift Shore is coming out of a pretty strong race, and that 113 TimeformUS speed figure that he earned looks totally legitimate, if not even a little low, given how well horses have come back out of that race. And if he can handle the stretch out in distance, I think he's a player in this race. I just have some concerns about him having the stamina to get a mile in the 16th while he's by Uncle Mo, who's a versatile sire. On the dam side, there really is a bit more sprint pedigree stemming from his dam sire, Speightstown, and the dam herself, who was a sprinter during her career. So I'm just a little concerned about him getting the distance, but I do think he has the talent to be competitive at this grade 3 level. A horse that I'm even more interested in is drawn right to his inside, and that's the number 1 Noble Reflection, one of those 2 horses that was shown on the lead in the pace projector. Now, Noble Reflection made his career debut at Del Mar last summer and ran pretty well in that race to be 3rd behind Dr. Scheibel, who came back to win a stakes, and Spielberg, who obviously came back to win some stakes and has competed in some Kentucky Derby prep since then. And Noble Reflection was off for a long time after that, but he came back last time out at Oaklawn Park. And let's take a look at his maiden victory in that race, because he was pretty visually impressive. This horse was quick out of the gate on the backstretch, opened up a clear lead right from the start, and really maintained that advantage all the way around the racetrack, showing really easy speed throughout. And you see Ricardo Santana, who's riding him this day, is just chirping to him through the stretch, and he's easily getting away from this field. The horse that runs up into second at the end, Gaslight, he was a well-meant first-time starter for Brad Cox, who came right back out of this race and won his second start with a similar speed figure. Noble Reflection got a 110 TimeformUS speed figure for this race. Now, that was only going 6 furlongs, but I am very encouraged by this horse stretching out in distance based on his pedigree. He's by Liam's Map, who was an excellent sire of dirt routers, and on the dam side, it's really just all dirt pedigree, all dirt route pedigree. His dam sire, Tisnow, is a route influence, and his dam has thrown a series of foals, almost all of whom have been best going route distances. Horses like Captain Moss, who was a turf router, Cash Out, who was a horse who could route on both dirt and turf, Pretty Fancy, who was a solid dirt router, just a lot of route pedigree all throughout this dam side family. So I think Noble Reflection is going to be able to get the distance. The big question is, can he withstand a really fast pace? I'm hoping that a horse who maybe just might play out as the speed of the speed can keep going on the front end and potentially take some other horses who want to get stalking trips out of their game by making them chase a quicker pace than they'd really like to. So I like Noble Reflection in this race. He's 15-1 on the morning line. We'll see what price he ultimately ends up at, but I think that's excellent value on a horse that could take a step forward. Finally, one more horse that I want to take a look at is the number 5, Unbridled Honor. And really just because he's likely to get a favorable pace setup here, I'm just not really sure that he's good enough to be competitive in this race, because as you look at his TimeformUS PPs, he's never broken into a triple-digit TimeformUS speed figure. And his last race in the Tampa Bay Derby, he was a little green that day, as he's been throughout his entire career, but he was just kind of picking up pieces at the end. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the 3-year-olds coming out of Tampa Bay Downs this winter. We've seen some horses run back out of the Tampa Bay Derby, and they've generally been underwhelming. So I'll be a little surprised if this horse can win the race, but I guess he's one that might be able to pick up some pieces at the end. So as we throw out my top picks for this race, I'm going with the number 1, Noble Reflection, who I like stretching out for Richard Baltas. We'll see if he's a fraction of that 15-1 morning line or if he's around that price. I think if he is near that price or in any kind of double-digit odds territory, he's a great value play in this Grade 3 Lexington on Saturday at Keeneland.